Hi everyone, this is Adam Virgil, and in this video we're going to discuss data validation and the crazy superpowers that it has when it comes to ensuring valid data collection and also interactions within a dashboard, let's say. So let's start with the data collection side of things. What we have is we got a basketball team with a bunch of dates and positions and rating of perceived exertion ratings or how hard the athletes felt exercise was on any given date. And to make sure this is typed in correctly, we can do a few things with data validation. So let's say that we're entering in this data every day. If we were to mistakenly type in 10-115-2020 instead of 10-15-2020 and click enter, nothing will happen and this will exist as it is. But if we're using this date to aggregate information, or if we're using this date in any way, the information will be inaccurate. So what we can do is we can apply data validation to make sure that these dates are accurate. The way that we do that, I'm just going to type in 10-15-2020 again, is we go to data, I'll just click this cell, and go to data, data validation. Now, the first thing that we see is a cell range. So that's where does this data validation apply? And right now it just applies to cell A2. But we might want this to apply to all the dates that we have to make sure that they're all accurate. So if we do a colon A1000, that means that this data validation is going to apply from A2 to A1000 in our data set. Now for criteria, we don't want list from a range. We want date to make sure that all the dates that we have typed in are valid. Now the next step is, what do we want to do if a date is not valid? Do we want to show a warning or do we want to completely reject the input? Well, let's say show a warning to start and let's click save. Now if I go to any cell in this range, let's say right here, and I type in 10-115-2020 and click enter, we'll get a little red arrow. The issue is that these red arrows could appear, but that does not affect the date being wrong. The date is still wrong no matter what. So what if we were to, let's type in 10-15-2020 again, because we knew it was wrong, because we saw the little red arrow. But what if instead of that being a show warning, we make it reject input? Let's go to data, data validation. And now again, it's going to be applied to the same range, A2 to A1000. But instead of showing a warning, let's completely reject the input. And we could even show validation help text, which is what shows up when you type in something wrong or when input is rejected. So instead of enter a validate, we can have this say whatever we want. You can say, hey dummy, type in a date that is actually a date, exclamation point. And if we save this now, and we do the same thing that we did before, we type in 10-115-2020 and click enter. Now it won't even let us do that. And here's our validation text saying that we're a dummy and we should just type in a real date that exists. And now 10-115-2020 won't show up. So that's a way of protecting against inaccurate data. Another thing that we can do is we can apply data validation to our names to make sure that the names are typed in correctly every time. So one thing that I typically do is I have a list of names that are accurate. I'm going to copy all the names from 10-15-2020 and I'll paste them right here. Let's say that these are all the accurate names that we have, and maybe we keep this in a list somewhere. And we apply data validation to these names so that only one of the names in our controlled list can be typed in. So if we go to data, data validation, and again, let's select our range here that we want the data validation to apply to, which is not just cell B2, but colon B1000, so from cells B2 to B1000. And we do want that criteria to be list from a range. And the range that we want to select or that we need it to match with the list is, if we click on this cell here, or the cell icon here, the data range might be these names. And click OK. And again, maybe instead of showing a warning, or we'll start with showing a warning again, and let's click Save. Now, because we have a list from a range, it creates a drop-down menu for each of these names. And the only names that we can select are in this list. However, that does not keep you from typing in a name. So I'm going to scroll down to the bottom of this list. And let's just try to type in a different name. I'm just going to type in my name, Adam. And click Enter. It still allows me to type it in because we have show warning, but we don't have reject input. Now I'm going to remove this name, and I am going to go to Data Validation. And the only thing that I'm going to change here is I'm just going to keep the range the same, B2 to B1000. But instead of showing a warning, let's completely reject the input and click Save. So now if I type in the name Adam and click Enter, it will not allow me to do that. Similarly, if I type in this name slightly wrong, let's say I type in Harry Birdie by accident and click Enter, again, the integrity of our data is not compromised because of a stupid mistake that we made when typing something in by applying data validation. One other thing that I see, so let's skip over the positions because we could do the same thing that we did before with the positions by having a drop-down list of positions here to pick from or to type in from. And let's apply data validation to these numbers. We know that this scale is from 1 to 10. So if we know this, what we can do is we can go to Data Validation. Instead of lists from a range, we'll pick something else. But first, we'll make sure that the range that we apply this to is right. D2 to D1000. And now all we have to do is select number. Now it'll ask us what criteria we need to confirm that this data is valid. For us, there are a couple of options here to pick from. So we could say is not equal to 0 or whatever we want. But in our case, we might want it has to be a number between 1 and 10. And let's just completely reject the input if it is not, and click Save. Now, if by accident, instead of a 10, we typed in 100, well, that's not an issue because it won't allow us to do that. And similarly, instead of 1, we typed in 11, we hit 1 twice because we got fat fingers, then again, it won't allow us to do that, and the integrity of our data is maintained. Sometimes, for example, if I don't have data validation on here, and I have a lot of data that I'm dealing with, I might apply data validation just to show me the warning so I know that when information might be typed in incorrectly, which helps me find solutions to problems. So if we go to data validation, and let's say that this RPE scale was only from 1 to 5. And we change this to be 1 to 5. And again, we're looking in the range D2 to D1000. And we show warnings. And I click Save. That quickly shows me all of the data points that could be errors. And if I get a new data set that I'm not used to, I might apply this type of validation so that I know quickly which things are out of the norm. Now, the fun part. We're going to use data validation to create an interactive dashboard, and we're going to do it in less than 5 minutes. You're going to have to know unique, filter, and average if formulas to create this. I'm going to do them rather quickly. I have videos on each of those independently and integrated together at times. You can check out those videos if you want a refresher. I'm just going to move this data over a little bit here to give us some room, and I'm going to color this box yellow because it's going to be where our data validation goes. So to set up our data validation, we'll go to Data Validation. And what we're going to do is we're going to create a drop-down list of athletes so that we can select an athlete and see their data over time. So for the cell range, this range is okay. We just want the data validation to apply to cell H2. And we do want a list from a range. And that range is going to be this list of athletes. So we want a list of these athletes here. And let's click OK and save. And now we have a drop-down menu of these athletes. Now to see their data over time, we need to get the dates and their data. So to do that, I'm just going to quickly get a list of their dates by typing in equals unique. And maybe I won't use the filter. I'm just going to click on the first date here, hold down Control and Shift and the down arrow to get to the bottom, and close off the parenthesis and click Enter. Now that gives us a unique list of dates for that athlete. And now I'm going to use the formula average ifs to get the value for RPE for the date for the athlete that we pick. And to do that, I'm going to go equals average ifs, open parenthesis, and the first thing that I need is an average range, which in our case is the RPE. That's what we want to go in this cell, comma. Now, when what is true? Well, when for criteria range 1, when the athlete in column B, comma, is equal to the athlete that we pick right here. And I'm just going to lock this cell in so that it doesn't move when I move the formula, comma. Criterion 2 is, and what else? So we want the average RPE when the athlete is the athlete that we pick, and also when the date, criteria range 2, comma, is equal to this date right here. And I'm going to lock in the H, but not the 4, so that I can drag this formula down and it will apply to each date. I'll close this parenthesis and click Enter. And we have an error because we have no athlete selected, but I will pick one. And this should be their RPE for 10/15/2020, and it is. And let's drag this down a little bit. And now we have their RPE for every date. So 10/17/2020, this athlete's RPE should be a 10, and let's just check that. 10/17/2020, this athlete's RPE is a 10. Now, we'll visualize it. I'm just going to select all this data here. I'm going to go to Insert, Chart, and it's working on creating a little chart for me. Okay, cool. I'm just going to make this a column chart, and that's it. So now I'm going to move over so that we don't see my face. And now we have created an interactive experience whereby we can see the athlete's information over time. All we have to do is, I'm low on storage space, and I am low on storage space. That's not good. So all we have to do is select a different athlete, and the data will change to reflect the RPs for that athlete over time. And if we wanted to, we could quickly go to our series and add some data labels to that, and we can see the raw values as we flip our athlete. So that's a way to use data validation to quickly create an interactive experience whereby you can select an athlete and see their data change over time. If you enjoyed this video and you got something out of it, please make sure to give it a like and subscribe to the channel so that YouTube knows that the content is valuable. And if not, let me know what I can do better, and I'll make sure to try to do it better. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.